Bonjour tout le monde, good afternoon. So, la première question, the first question will go to Carl Duggan. Merci, thank you.
Hi, Minister, can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Yes, I can.
Thank you for taking our questions. Some members of the armed forces now think that their paychecks are going to go up by 20% overall, and they're worried that the government may renege on the pay raise. So I just wonder, what do you have to say to them?
Well, thank you for the question. Listen, we were very clear in our election platform that we would be addressing the question of compensation for members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and we're moving forward in that regard. We're looking now at a full examination, top to bottom, of a compensation package for members of the Canadian Armed Forces. I've asked the Deputy Minister, the Department, and the Chief of Defence Staff to address this systematically. And we will be doing so and having more to say about it in due course. It's really a question now of finding the best way to proceed. Now, keeping in mind, of course, this is going to be about salaries and compensation, but it'll also be about other benefits. For example, different incentives to keep folks longer in the forces, to enable the recruitment of highly needed technical experts like mechanics or technologists that are hard to recruit. So this overall package is moving forward. It's being designed, and we'll have more to say about it in due course.
Right. And then on the SAFE or the rearm programs, will Canada be able to apply for loans through these programs for our defense needs? How can we leverage them, and do we need to?
We do need to, and we're very proud this Monday to have been in Brussels to meet with the leadership of the European Union and to have Canada join in an important moment where Europe will be expending some $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years, roughly, an 800 billion euro, new contribution for defense spending, 150 billion of which Canada will be able to participate in partnership with other European Union states. So we're moving to phase 2 of this agreement, which is to ratify more bilateral arrangements. And Canada will be able to join, usually in conjunction with 2 other states, which is also going to make it more interesting because we'll be able to, for example, if we're procuring equipment for Canada, we'll be able to join with other states and use economies of scale to make sure that we pass on the savings for anything we purchase to the Canadian taxpayer.
Thank you.
Thank you, merci. Next question will be to Justin Lang. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, good morning, Minister. Thanks for doing this.
Good morning.
You've seen, and well, at the very least, you've heard many nations talk about the utility of partnering with Ukraine in terms of research and development on new military kit, drones, electronic warfare, and the like. But you've not seen many nations actually figure out what sort of co-production looks like. The UK has just announced a co-production agreement with Kyiv. I'm wondering, is Ottawa attempting any similar deal? And can you tell me on the progress of what that deal looks like?
Thank you for the question. It is something under active consideration at the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. We can point to a couple of recent successes and practical models. For example, Renault in France has just joined up with Ukrainian manufacturers to build plants, I believe, in both locations, France and Ukraine, for the production of drones. The Ukrainians have made huge strides and advances in drone technology, something that we're actively looking at. That's one serious opportunity that we'll look to as a model. The other is what's called the Danish model so far, which is a kind of a flow-through agreement where the Danish government is offering its financial mechanism to allow for a country like Canada, for example, to assist Ukraine, because the Danish mechanism procures directly from Ukrainian companies, which gives them a lift as well. So it's a little bit of both. It's both providing the defense equipment that Ukraine needs to fight off the Russian invasion, the continuing invasion, and it's also something that helps with the local industrial benefits in a Ukrainian context. But we'll be looking at both of those models very carefully, and we'll have more to say about that in due course.
Thanks. Just as a follow-up, what is the hindrance there? Because when we first started purchasing some of this equipment through Denmark, it was phrased as a temporary deal until we could figure out how to sort of untangle our own processes and make that work. Why are we still kind of relying on that? And at the back end of this, is there any benefit down the line for our own defense industry in sort of accessing the expertise and the production facilities in Ukraine at a point in time when the war will finally be over?
Well, there may very well be some interesting industrial benefits which would directly accrue to Canadian companies. It's exactly what we're looking at to see what the best mechanism is. The Copenhagen or the Danish model exists, it's continuing to exist. It's not the only one we would look to. It's one that has met with some success with other NATO countries, but we're looking here at direct benefits for Canadian companies. That's one of the reasons why I met with about 10 industrial leaders in The Hague on the first morning to talk about a defense industrial strategy going forward that's very specific and very practical, very deal-oriented to be able to contribute to the Canadian defense industrial cluster. We have incredible companies doing incredible work. So as we finalize the defense industrial strategy, there will be more fine-tuning, and there is, I think, ample opportunity for us to drive those benefits in a Canadian context to get jobs in Canada and, of course, revenues and grow our economy.
Thank you very much. The next question is to Murray Brewster from CBC.
Good morning, Minister. Can you hear me?
I can, Murray. Good morning.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about capabilities. I'm looking to find out how close we are or whether we have signed a deal with the United States as it relates to the purchase of HIMARS for the Canadian Army.
I'm not in a position to comment directly about that specific contract, that procurement opportunity. I can bounce back to you and get more information. I think there's more to follow in terms of those negotiations. So I wish I could give you more clarity or line of sight on that, Murray. I just can't at this time.
The other question I have relates to the F-35 review. You've said that it will be later in the summer. The Prime Minister has said it will be later in the summer before there is some kind of consideration. But I'm curious as to the terms of reference. Precisely what is it that the Canadian Air Force is being asked to review? Are they being asked to review whether it is possible to run 2 fleets of fighter jets? Is it possible that there all of the military considerations in terms of infrastructure, like precisely what are the terms of reference for that review and why is it taking so long?
We've given the department a wide girth here, Murray. We've allowed them to look at this objectively. It really is something that we've not weighed into too directly. We feel that it's frankly, it's all of that and likely more. I would think, but I can't prejudge the outcome of how far they're going to cast their net. We're waiting to see what they deliver by the end of the summer, as the Prime Minister said. And we're looking forward to it anxiously to see where they come down in terms of what's transpired over the last several years. And it's also important to take a snapshot in time. We want to accommodate 2 principal objectives here. One is to make sure that the women and men of the Royal Canadian Air Force get the fighter jet capabilities that they require and they need. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're getting appropriate value for money for Canadians. So we'll be reading the review with those 2 principles primarily in mind, Murray. And we are, at that point, going to be in the position, I hope, to take a decision. But as the Prime Minister also said yesterday, we're going to take the time we need to make sure we get this right.
Just to clarify, though, you did not give terms of reference to the Air Force. You just said, take a look at it?
We asked the department and the Canadian Armed Forces as a whole to examine the status of the procurement. We've asked them to take a look at the terms that were already in place. I can't say much more than that. Obviously, a number of the elements that would be examined would remain secret. This is a very large procurement. There's a lot of financial questions on the line. So it's pretty much as far as I can go. There were terms of reference. They're broad. And right now, we'll have a lot more to say about it when the review is made public.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le ministre. La prochaine question sera Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur le ministre. Merci de prendre nos questions. Durant ces 3 jours là, à La Haye et à Bruxelles, j'imagine que de votre côté, vous avez eu des rencontres dans le but de signer justement cette deuxième entente qui va amener là, les industries canadiennes à pouvoir vraiment faire des affaires en Europe. Qu'est-ce qui ressort de ces rencontres-là? Est-ce qu'il y a des endroits où vous voyez qu'il faudra négocier un peu plus fort? Est-ce qu'il y a des voies de passage où vous dites, bon, ben, cette industrie-là serait vraiment la première à être capable de signer une entente? Ou est-ce que vous pouvez nous parler finalement de ces rencontres-là?
Moi, je pense que la première observation que je voudrais faire, c'est la façon dont le Canada a été reçu par l'Union européenne. Très bien reçu, c'était bien vu, c'était d'une façon très positive pour l'Union parce qu'un joueur principal en Amérique du Nord se joint à un système d'achat d'équipements militaires, etc. Donc, première observation, que c'était très bien reçu des deux côtés. Deuxièmement, qu'il y a énormément d'opportunités pour le Canada pour participer dans l'expansion du système militaire, des achats militaires partout en Europe. J'ai eu des discussions, troisièmement, très particulières, très précises avec plusieurs ministres de la Défense au niveau des besoins immédiats, où le Canada pourrait aider, où le Canada pourrait jouer un rôle, où le Canada et ses compagnies pourraient être partenaires dans des compagnies de deux côtés de la mer, si on peut le dire comme ça. Donc, moi, je pense que l'observation principale, c'est bien reçu et deuxièmement, extrêmement bien, au niveau du timing, extrêmement bien vu, beaucoup d'opportunités et beaucoup d'intérêt dans plusieurs domaines, intelligence artificielle, quantum physics, dans le domaine du renseignement, dans le domaine de la technologie aéronautique, beaucoup. Donc, on fait le suivi immédiatement pour voir où on peut coopérer de façon plus approfondie.
Et est-ce qu'à un moment donné, il a été requestion du Dôme d'or avec la délégation américaine à La Haye?
Non, on n'a pas eu le temps ou l'opportunité de discuter d'une façon plus profonde avec les Américains. J'ai eu la chance de parler avec le secrétaire Hegseth, qui a clairement expliqué la position américaine devant nous, les ministres de la Défense des 32 pays. Et puis, ça a été clarifié, je pense, pour plusieurs d'entre nous. Il a bien expliqué les pressions dont il fait face aux États-Unis. Et puis, le fait que les partenaires, tous les membres de l'OTAN ont décidé d'aller de l'avant avec un 5% d'ici 2035. Je pense que ça a beaucoup aidé avec les relations entre les 31 membres et les États-Unis, donc les 32 ensemble. Et je pense que aussi, ça a été bien expliqué par le président Trump en sortant qu'il a vu ça comme de façon très positive. Et on va de l'avant maintenant comme 32 partenaires.
Thank you very much, Minister. As there are no other raised hands, we have one last question. Does anybody have one last question to ask? Benas from AFP, Agence France Presse. Merci.
Good morning, Minister. You spent a couple of days in Latvia. Just wondering if you have any updates surrounding Canada's military presence in the Baltic states and perhaps a change in posture. And in general, how do you assess the security situation there at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. After the day's meetings and briefings, I assess the situation is serious. Obviously, the Baltic states as a whole are very concerned about what's happening inside Ukraine. They have, of course, a front row seat to what is going on there. I would say this, I spent a good part of the day at Camp Adazi today meeting with hundreds of the 2,000 Canadian soldiers who are on site here. And I must say, I'm struck by the incredible professionalism of our Canadian forces, the sophistication of the operation at the camp. It was also a wonderful time for me because I was here to oversee or to participate in a change in command, one Canadian taking over from yet another Canadian in a 14-country multinational force. And it's become very clear to me, and I think it's become clear to our government and clear to our Canadian Armed Forces, that Canada has a very, very strong leadership role to play in situations like this, where it is a multinational approach to this kind of crisis. Certainly being called upon to continue. Canada remains very committed, of course, to the Ukrainian situation, as we've made public many times. So it's my responsibility now to go back and deal with my cabinet colleagues and the government as a whole to talk about the next iteration going forward.
There was one question on F-35, but that was mainly because what kind of review the Air Force will be doing, but he was very non-committal, but I've highlighted those portions. You will see that in the order.
That's great. Thank you.
Sorry, who's?
Otherwise boring, yeah?
I mean, there is some interesting.
Excuse me, can you identify yourself, please? Okay. So this concludes the press conference. Thank you, Minister. Merci tout le monde pour votre temps. Cela conclut notre conférence de presse. Bonne journée.